Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video talking to you about this handguard here on this C308. Now I've done quite a few videos with this C308. However, if you guys have been watching like the original review I did, you probably know that one of the biggest things I wanted to swap out was this front handguard here. And just to show you the original handguard that comes with it, again, this is just the C308. If you get a different HK91 style rifle or set-me style rifle, it might be different. This one normally comes with the standard set-me style handguard, which, while perfectly serviceable, doesn't really give you the modularity that modern firearms have really kind of spoiled us to. So if you guys probably know, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, that I'm a really big fan of Midwest Industries products. So when I found out that they were making HK91 handguards, I pretty much made up my mind that that's what I had to have on this rifle. Now, some of you are no doubt wondering how I got this thing to work on the C308, because right off the bat I'll say Midwest Industries will say on their website and tell you these are not built to work on the C308 rifle. Because these are designed for the HK pattern, which I'll go into a little bit more in depth what makes the set-me style rifles different from the HK, which is why they're not designed for this. However, I was able to make it work, and I'll show you a little bit how I did that later in the video. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and roll in some footage of this thing in action, and then we'll show you a little bit more close up what this thing has on it. So as you can see, this specific handguard is an M-LOK. I don't believe their HK91 style handguards are available in key mod. I think it's only M-LOK, but honestly that's fine with me. M-LOK is definitely the future. That's where the industry is going, so I have no issues with that whatsoever. Now, whereas a lot of companies are only going to give you 3, 6, and 9 o'clock M-LOK slots, this thing will actually give you a little bit more than that. So you have like 1:30, 3 o'clock, what is it, 5, 4:30, 6 o'clock, 7:30, 9 o'clock, but then up here is just regular cutouts, not M-LOK, since that's where your cocking handle has to go. So you actually have 6 slots of M-LOK all the way around, which, you know, again, doubles the available sections for you to attach accessories, which means you have to have less adapters if you want to have something slightly offset instead of it one of the 3, 6, or 9 o'clock positions. One of the other things that this has, which is pretty much on most Midwest Industries handguards, which I'm a big fan of, is built-in QD slots. So you have them up here on the front as well as back here. So if you want to run a QD sling, that is absolutely an option. Again, you don't have to put in any extra hardware. You don't have to put any QD sections, which is nice because the more sections you add on, you know, those always have a tendency, not a tendency, but those have a possibility of coming off at some point. And then you'll notice down here I have a Enforce WML, which is still in testing. This is one of the newer generation ones. And this is attached to a 1913 rail section, which is actually included with the handguard, which is always nice. Because that's one thing I like about Midwest Industries handguards. They always include not only all the hardware you need to install it, so all the screws, fasteners, and the hex wrenches. You also get the actual 1913 sections, so if you want to attach a light like this one or something else that's 1913 compatible, you have that right out of the box. So I'm going to use the original set-me handguard to show you how this thing actually attaches. If you look back here on the handguard, you can see this little recessed portion, and that actually goes into the receiver. And then up here you have this little push pin, very similar to any other HK style push pin if you're used to that. And what that does is that goes above the barrel but under the cocking tube to basically prevent this thing from rotating down and away from the firearm. The way this works on the set-me is it's basically fit to where this thing just kind of snaps into place, and this pin only prevents it from rotating down. Because of the length of this, there's nothing to prevent this thing from moving forward or backward in the firearm other than the tight fit between this and the handguard retainer. And that is why this thing is not really designed to work on the C308. So let me show you on the rifle why that is. So if you look right here where this little through bolt is, this is where the push pin would go on that Setme handguard. However, on the HK91s, G3s, the actual HK design guns, there's a little band that goes around the cocking tube that would go through, which would prevent this thing from sliding forward or backward. And then again, you have the recessed part back here, which goes in the receiver to prevent it from going down. But because you don't have that band up here in the front, again, there's nothing preventing this thing from going forward or backwards. So what I did to make this work is I basically used JB Weld, but probably not in the way you're thinking, and I made a little block, little spacer buffer thing, and made it the size of the gap between the front sight block here and the actual retaining pin, so that it filled up that gap so that this thing cannot travel forward. You know, kind of a roundabout way of getting it to work, but so far it's been working. I have probably 250 or so rounds through it set up like this, and it hasn't come loose, hasn't rotated, hasn't come off, nothing crazy like that. That's not a ton of rounds, but hey, it's 308, it's not cheap to shoot, and it's been working so far. I'll definitely update you guys if I start running into any issues. But for those of you running HK91s, this thing will work just fine. You just replace that push pin on your factory handguard with this little bolt right here. It'll go through that little retaining bracket and you're good to go. And I guess it's worth noting, if you've seen Curtis from the VSO gun channel, he put one of these Midwest handguards on his C308, and he basically used the plumber retaining bands, I don't know what the proper nomenclature is, to basically recreate those little handguard retaining brackets that you get on the HKs, and that seemed to be working for him. So what are the pros and cons of having one of these attached to your rifle? I'm going to go ahead and start with the pros. And first of all, it gives you a lot more modularity and ability to add accessories than you would have with your factory C308 or HK91 rifle, depending on how yours comes configured, if it's a HK91. So again, you can see here, I have this flashlight up here, which in my opinion, on any fighting rifle, you need some sort of illumination, and maybe not in for force for your first choice, but so far this one's been working. Again, it's continuing testing, it's chugging along, and it's handling the recoil impulse of the C308, so that's always a good thing. But if you wanted to add any sort of vertical grip or bipod adapter or anything like that, you can now do it, whereas you could not do that with the factory Setme style handguard. One of the other good things is these are made in America, which means for those of you who have like an imported kit and you need those US made parts to make it 922R compliant, this will count as a US made part. So for those of you who want to remain within the legal realm, this is one way you can up the number of US made parts in your build. One of the most important things that this does is makes the gun a little bit more sexy, in my opinion, as a subjective thing, but I like the overall look of this thing with this handguard over the look it had with the factory handguard. You can go back to my other videos with it to make that determination for yourself, but I just think that this thing looks really good. It's still got that slimline feel of the original handguard, so it's really easy to get a good positive grip on this, which is really good with the recoil impulse that you get on these style of rifles. And it really doesn't add much weight at all. It's actually surprisingly light. I'll have to look up the exact number and I'll put it down, but hardware included, it still maintains a nice light weight, which is good on a heavier rifle like this one. This also allows me to attach different types of slings. So I have, this is the Strike Industries S3 Pro sling, and it has these little loops up here, and I was able to just loop it around one of the rail sections, and it works very, very well for that. Oh, one other thing I should mention is you'll notice with all these cutouts, and I'll bring it in closer, you can see that there's a lot more airflow going to that barrel, which is really good because these guns get hot really, really, really quick. In fact, I've seen a video It was I think a 1,000-round torture test that someone did with a C308, and the factory handguard actually melted off and fell off the gun. That's not going to happen with one of these, and because of the M-LOK slots in so many different positions, you're really going to increase the airflow, which is going to help keep that temperature down a little bit. So since we've covered the pros, what are the cons? Are there any cons? And honestly, the only thing I can think of, other than this not being purpose-built for the C308, which I get, I was able to make it work, there are some workarounds, is the cost. Now, those of you familiar with HK stuff, you understand that cost is just one of the things that goes along with owning HK-style stuff, with the exception of the HK91s, because these mags are ridiculously cheap, but other than that, you know HK parts are extremely expensive, and this thing comes into market around 175 bucks, and that's not cheap. Now, it's not as expensive as some of the other alternative options out there. I think it's a good value for what you're getting. I don't think it's overpriced, but it's still not cheap. Now, that being said, I do have a coupon code through Midwest Industries, which applies to all products made by Midwest Industries. So if you use my coupon code, that'll be down here at the bottom of the screen as well as in the description box. I believe you get 10% off anything made by Midwest Industries. So that'll help bring the cost down a little bit. And I know normally they do free shipping on anything over 150 bucks, which depending on, you know, how that coupon code works out, and I'm not sure if that stacks with free shipping, but you can try that out, see if that helps out. Should help out quite a bit at least. So really there's not that much else to say about it. It works really, really well. They still have clear and ready access to the cocking handle, as long as you don't put anything crazy on this 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position. You can still lock that cocking handle back. You can still HK slap it down very easily. Everything still works. It looks way better, in my opinion. Again, totally subjective, but I just think it works better, and it is far more functional. Now I have the ability to easily mount a light in a very ergonomic position. This probably won't be my go-to lighting method for this. I'll probably get something mounted up here instead. I'll just have to see how that plays into the cocking handle. But for now, it's working, gets a light where I need it to, and that makes me feel a lot better about using this as any sort of game time rifle. Because again, in my opinion, you absolutely need illumination on any rifle you're going to use to protect yourself. So if you're wondering if this will work on your specific rifle, because again, I'm not sure if it's designed to work on PTRs. I'm not exactly sure how PTRs are set up here. You can absolutely get in touch with Midwest Industries, either via phone or email or whatever, and I'm sure they'll be able to give you a little bit more guidance in regards to that. If you have a C308, I don't know if modifying up here will void your warranty or anything else like that. That might be worth asking them. But again, it's working for me so far. I'll let you guys, it's nice and tight. I'll let you guys know if I run into any issues. But again, so far it seems to be working out really well for me. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw those in the comment section down below. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can, but it is getting a little bit harder to stay on top of that. So you can also reach me over on Facebook, or any other social media method out there. I do want to say thank you to my patrons for making a video like this possible. 308 is not cheap to shoot, even the cheap stuff. So I was able to use money from my patrons to be able to purchase the ammo to shoot with this thing and with this handguard to make sure that this thing was going to stay solid and work out well for me. So really do appreciate my patrons over there. And if you're interested, I do upload all my content over there early, as well as doing some exclusive content for them, just to kind of give back, because they do make a huge, huge difference for my channel. One other thing that I'm kind of excited to mention is I now have my own branded shirts. It's might not come across too well on camera here with the lighting, but I have these new shirts. So there should be a link either immediately below this video or in the description as well, depending on where you're viewing this. So if you're interested in repping OreGear out and about, definitely follow that. If you are watching this before the end of 2018, there are some limited edition shirts that are only going to be run between now and January 1st. After that, those shirts will no longer be available, and I'll have some others to replace it. So if that's something that is intriguing to you, definitely check out the links and get yours while you can. But anyway, with all that said, as always, I hope you're able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.